Welcome back. I'm gonna make a dress that I've always wanted to make. I love the Tudor style, but I've never made anything historically accurate. I don't think today's dress is gonna be historically accurate at all, by the way, but it's gonna be an attempt. I always start the project trying to make something historically accurate, and then it just becomes whatever I want. So we'll see how this dress turns out, but I don't have the highest hopes of accuracy. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I'm filming this as I have finished the dress, and I'm wearing it right now. But you can't see it, so take that. We're just gonna pretend you're gonna forget that I said that. Jedi mind tricks don't work in general. I don't know why I think they'd work through a camera. And I have tried. How else was I supposed to try and pass middle school? You will give me a passing grade in PE class. I'm kidding, I did not fail PE. No one fails PE. The only way to fail PE is in the eyes of your fellow peers. And boy did I fail PE. Well, who's laughing now, huh? I'm a wildly... I was gonna say successful, but that's not the right word. I'm a wildly prolific YouTube artist. Yeah. So take that, Austin. What dress tutorial? This is a dress tutorial. Okay, so today we're just gonna go through the process of watching me make a dress. I'm gonna try and teach you my ways as best as possible, but we'll see if that actually pans out the way it never does. Okay, so we're gonna start with a pattern, which is the base layer of our dress, the architecture, if you will, the scaffolding that holds all the molding together. So you're gonna need some kind of sacrificial fabric, or maybe butcher paper, or even like cut up children's drawings. I don't care, whatever you have on hand, you can use that to create your pattern onto the dress form itself. So pin the fabric up to the dress form, and luckily most dress forms have guidelines as to where you can cut for pieces, as you can see on my dress form. It's hiding in the gaps. Just make sure you keep to the flow of the actual form itself. That's really important to making sure that there aren't any creases or anything in your dress. I'll usually do a drawing and draw out all the pieces first, just so I know kind of what I'm doing. I have an idea. I'll usually cut out 4 pieces. That's front, side, back side, and back, and I will label them accordingly just to keep, organized. Well, my day just got so much more exciting.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know. I'm just exploiting a car crash for YouTube videos.
There's just a strange number of firefighting trucks for a car accident.
You always gotta be careful. You never know when something will spontaneously combust. Like my career. Why are firefighters never as attractive as they are in the calendars? Why do so many of my filming endeavors end up on the floor? Why do I have so many questions? So I have this fabric that I've been wanting to use for a while. I rescued it from a duvet cover that someone was gonna throw away. And I also have this gold fabric, and I think I'm gonna mismatch the pattern pieces. Oh god, here they come. There they go. But I think that'll be a really cool complementary. I think it'll look nice. Now go ahead and pin your pattern pieces to your fabric. If I'm using this nice brocade fabric, I usually like to try and get the design as much in the middle as possible, as much symmetry as I can get. Now cut it out with a pizza cutter, or if you prefer, a knife or scissors. I like to pretend I'm in an Italian pizza kitchen, saying things like, "Mamma mia, where's the tomatoes? Era Roma." But honestly, you can pretend to be in whatever restaurant you'd like. It's your fantasy. I made So I have this back piece that I've already cut out. I'm just going to do the back piece and the front piece. Those are the parts that are going to be green. Shush, shush, shush. The others are all going to be gold. So I've cut out this back piece. I'm just going to flip it over and try and match it up as best as I can to this, so we have 2 symmetrical pieces, and then we're going to cut that out. I try and be as stingy as I possibly can with my fabric. I always want to make sure that I have enough for the skirt or the sleeves or whatever else that I'm going to be doing, and the skirt takes up a lot. Now match up that pattern as best you can, trace it out, and then go ahead and cut it. And that's pretty much it. I don't know why this shot is going on so long. I have the power to stop it, but I don't want to. I'm cutting out my side and backside pieces in gold, and I think that will give a really cool dichotomy. I have no idea. I'm not good at words or nothing. But I like to fold the fabric over and then cut it out, and that way you can just get both pieces, the lining and the bodice piece, out at the same time. And guess what? I'm just gonna do the same thing with my back piece too, because that is what we call ingenuity. But in my case, it's more like desperation. So I brought my sewing machine out here because it's nicer and the light is better. And I was so bored in that room. Like, oh my god. It's bizarre how I can beat quarantine by going into a separate room to do something. What we're gonna do next is sew all of the pieces together. If you saw my last video, you know the process that I'm doing. I sew up the sides and then flip it inside out, and then I sew all the pieces together on the hem. What I did not do last time was leave enough seam allowance to where I could sew those pieces together and they would fit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go about a ½ inch out from where the actual dress will be sewn together. I've been going on 20-mile bike rides every day, so I'm very boring right now, so forgive me. So I just went on a 22-mile bike ride, very exhausted, very tired. But my energy for this dress is still at this level, which if I were standing would be at my waist. So what you're gonna do is flip all the pieces inside out. Ta-da! Oh my god. Once your boyfriend thinks you're dead, cut off the excess seam allowance, cut slits in any concave areas just to make sure they don't pucker when turned inside out. Then turn it inside out. Now I've gone ahead and pinned up the bottom of the pieces, and I'm just gonna sew over the top of them and close the entire thing off. And now is a perfect time to go ahead and sew your pieces together. Line them up and remember to sew about a 1/2 inch in because that's what my seam allowance allowed. Seam allowance allowed. Allowed the... Morning. Okay, so it's a brand new spring day, and I have finished the bodice. So I've sewn all the pieces together. I had to do a little tailoring just because when I tried it on, it wasn't quite fitting. So I took it in about 1 inch. Just in case you are tailoring anything, if it's just 1 inch or 2, I typically just sew in strictly on this side, right under the armpit. That tends to be kind of the magic spot to pull everything together without any bunching or rippling or anything like that. If you're going from like a double XL to a candy cane size, it might be a little different story. Anyway, next moving on. I've also pinned on the zipper, as you can see here. I don't need to explain that to you. You know how the zipper works. What I will tell you is that I'm also going to sew the zipper onto the skirt itself, just to give me a little more wiggle room to get in, because let's just say my lady hips are rather truthful, or in the words of Shakira, they do not lie. You are so hacky today. I will leave open about 2 inches at the very bottom of the zipper, just so I can tuck the skirt under and then zip it down. I don't know what the next step is. Do I do the skirt or the sleeves? I'm gonna do the sleeves. I'm gonna go for that. So I'm going to do sleeves first for no particular artistic reason. I usually have a pattern for sleeves, which if you're wondering is just a suit jacket that I cut up. And it's worked pretty much every time, but today I'm going to use my imagination. I just have to put my head to the ground and imagine the sleeve. Imagine the sleeve. I was so sleepy yesterday, which was when I started this video, so apologies if anything before this point was really low energy and tiresome and boring, but that's just the way the cookie is. Okay. The first step is going to be to say hello to your dog. Hello, Sam! Once finished, move on to the next step. Petting it. And if anyone can guess what I'm watching in the background, I will send you $3. That is right, 3 whole gosh darn dang diddly dun did dollars. So I'm only gonna make half sleeves, so I'm just gonna measure down here, measure up here. This part doesn't really matter because I'm making puff sleeves. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. Yeah, I'm making puff sleeve. It's gonna be a nightmare. I have like a Tudor style bodice with Victorian style puff sleeves. What am I doing? Measure out the measurements that I just took, but if you weren't paying attention, they're roughly a hard drive size to a small toy school bus size. Now cut your pattern out, leaving about half of a ripe watermelon sized bubble at the very top. Now let's play a fun little game I like to call Watch Jodie Totally Mess Up. Can you spot where the drag queen totally messed up? I've made mistakes. I've sewn the arms on backwards before. I will sew a piece on the opposite way and have a hem on the outside. I've accidentally murdered people, tanned their skins, and then turned those skins into a dress. But I have never done this. I just sewed this completely on the wrong... I have to take the seam out, flip it over, and do it again. And to anyone who got the answer right, shut up. Ah. Oh my god. I don't know if my dermatologist watches this, but he's gonna have some things to say. I'm just kidding, I don't have a fucking dermatologist. Okay, so I'm not putting a lining on this on the sleeve, so it's gonna have exposed seams. But I have a little trick around that. So I've sewn this up. Now what I'm gonna do is I leave such a lot of seam allowance. I leave 1 inch usually, just so I can do this, so I can fold them in and pinch, and that way it gets rid of any fraying, and then I just sew it up. I've already done it on this one, therefore there are no frays, and I don't I don't necessarily have to put on a lining if I don't want to. You know, just feel that coarse couch fabric against your skin. I've stitched the sleeve onto the bodice. Isn't that nice? Half of it at least, the other half is still safety pinned. I started from that crease of the sleeve on the very bottom and attached it to the crease under the armpit on the bodice. And then just work your way, pinning it all the way up to the top. Because I'm doing puff sleeves, I have a little left over. And so what I'm gonna do is fold them over like so, pin them in place, and then, of course, when you flip it inside out, you have these little rivets. I don't know if that's what you should call them, but that's what I'm gonna call them. Dimples, canyons, pustules. You have these little pustules, and that is what's going to allow the puff to take place. Now sew it up, you little scamp. This is a finished bodice. I'm gonna have to shorten these sleeves because I want it to be at the elbow, and this comes roughly to my, like, mid lower arm. What is my lower arm called? I didn't like the dual colors when I first saw it, but I'm kind of loving it now. My next step is to do the hangy sleeves, which I've actually already got cut out, and I'll show you right now. This is roughly the length of a sea snake. I've cut it to an angle at the top. This is actually where it's going to sew on to the bottom of my green sleeve. Green sleeves was a... Okay. I did this for some variation in shape, so it's not just a straight line across the bottom. It's going to hang, and I think that'll be really pretty. Okay, if I'm 100% honest, I completely forgot that I was making a video, and I think that's just because I'm kind of in a hurry to get this done. I have a lot of stuff to do. I sewed on the sleeves. Oh my god, why is it so confusing when it's all a giant jumble? It's like trying to find form in mashed potatoes. This is the bodice. It is done. The sleeves are on. So I cut up to my elbow on the green part of the sleeve. And then the draping sleeves I just sewed on with ruching. So I just flipped it this way, stitched it on in the placement that I wanted, and then flipped it right back over, and that way there is no seam. Muy importante. I mean, not really, it's just I try and show as few seams as I possibly can. And it almost never ends up working out that way. I always have some visible seam showing. I typically don't care about anything like across the top if it's pretty invisible, but like stitching this onto it, I don't want to see a seam. That's gross. So I have my big panel that's going to go on the bottom of the bodice. It's a skirt. I should just say it's a skirt. I have the skirt. I folded it into fourths right now just because I wanted to get a gauge of where I need to cut on this, and I'll explain. So as you can see, this comes to a V. Now, I need to cut my skirt accordingly, and it's easier on the hemline if I cut it from the top where I'm going to sew on to the bodice. A quarter of the skirt is going to come up to this seam right here under the armpit. Do you like how I'm pointing with my feet? Because I do not. And so what I need to do is I need to cut that quarter off at a diagonal line where it meets the bodice. I am filming, and I will do that now. Keep track of where you need to cut. I put scissors down to make sure I know where. You can put a toddler down or maybe something less mobile. Make sure your fabric is straight. And again, because it doesn't have to be too exact, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It comes to about here. Now cut it. Done. I decided to put a little more fabric on the bottom, so I just pinned it so that it would ruffle a little bit. Oh, and look, there's my dog. I've gotten to the point where I'm pinning the zipper. Wow. I've gotten to the point where I'm pinning the zipper on to the skirt. What you want to do with all that junk inside, okay. What you want to do is just make it as straight as possible, pinch it, and then just pin it to it, and later we can go in and cut this out, and then we have an opening where we can, zip the dress up. Wow, that was piss poor. Pin it down and sew it up. So I thought the dress was pretty much done, but I had less fabric than I thought. And so the skirt isn't as full as I'd like it to be. So what I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna cut a slit through parts of the skirt and then add darts of this gold fabric. And I think that'll be really pretty, give it some dimension and make it dynamic. And so I think that's the next step. Then I'll sew all the hems, and I think it's pretty much done. I might do some pretty frills along the edge, but I don't know, because I've been interested in very clean looking dresses recently, which does not match my personality or my sobriety. So we're gonna debate on that. We're gonna see what we think. To make the darts, I folded a rectangular piece of fabric over and then just cut it into triangles. I then cut a slit into the skirt and sewed the edges of the triangles onto the edge of the skirt. Okay, it is 4 o'clock 3:49 to be exact, on this, the day of our Lord. Since quarantine started, I have had such trouble remembering what day of the week it is. But I have done 2 things today. One of them, I went on a 2-mile bike ride. 2-hour bike ride. It's like 23 miles. I don't want to go under it, but I feel that I have to. How did I end up in fucking Narnia? That duck way out there is named Donald, that one is named Sheffield, and that one is named Duck because he is indeed a duck. Oh wow, look at that. I rode so hard that I made it to ancient Greece. I also rode by a warehouse where they keep movie sets, a giant Pokemon, and a ping pong table out in the middle of nowhere. Like, who would decide to play ping pong on a table outside? That's disastrous. And the other thing, admittedly, is not working on the dress. It has been doing this. I'm making a sports ball jersey for a friend of mine. He's doing a poetry book, which is pretty rad. It's funny, actually, I went to college with him, moved down to Austin, and then later on, he moved down to Austin, and I didn't know he was here for like 2 years. And he's publishing a book. I'm on YouTube. But I'm making a sports jersey, so this has been taking up most of my time. And okay, look, I am proud of how this looks right now. But these edges have been giving me so many problems. I've had to pin and repin, and they're still not quite as perfect as I'd like them to be, so I'm gonna try one more time, especially with this. I don't know if you can see, but ooh, that is rough. So, and that's the front. That's what's gonna draw them peepers. But my friend actually asked me if I was gonna put this in a YouTube video, and I told him no. But guess what? I lied. Oh, and also I realized this matches what I'm wearing right now, and my biking bag. I feel like Bridgestone needs to send me money now. And extra for every time that I bike. Look, if I don't force these sponsorships, they're not gonna come. Oh, I also made shorts. Oh, okay. I did not show this last night, but look what I did. I finished the darts, and I don't know how I feel about them. This is almost like a circus tent. And that's not to say my makeup doesn't already make me look like a clown. But I don't need anything else furthering that aesthetic in people's minds. But it's too late now, there's nothing I can do. I can't go back. But you know what, I think it's gonna look better when it's on a poof skirt. That's my hope anyway. And then if the skirt is not long enough for the puff skirt underneath it, I might also sew a panel on the bottom because I have more of this brocade that I can use. And then something for a headpiece. I don't know what I'm gonna do just yet. Because in a video before my last video, second to last video, I didn't go to school for math, I made an Elizabethan / Tudor headpiece. So I already have 2 of those, and I feel like I don't want to overdo it on them. So we're gonna do some research, find out maybe if I could be inspired by a medieval headdress and still not entirely look out of place in a costume drama. What am I saying? I have a beard and I'm wearing a not historically accurate dress, so of course I'm gonna look out of place. So I sewed the darts on a little weird and it got a little warpy, but I was really tired at this point and the skirt would drape anyway, so I figured it would just be fine the way it was. I've pinned a very long piece of cloth to the very bottom of the skirt piece. And so I'm gonna sew that all along the edge just to give it a little more elegance, let's say. And also because it's not long enough to cover the poof skirt. Now sew it on so it gets a little ruffly. So I done did this. This is just a very long gold panel. It's a very long gold panel that I just bunched up at the very top and sewed together. I'm gonna pin this onto the point of the bodice of my dress and match it up and see where it needs to flow. I've decided to sew down the front of this dress. I'll explain further. So this is the front panel, and I've decided that there's kind of a disparity in the strength of the fabric, durability of the fabric, the heftiness of the fabric. And so here I've sewn this down just right on top with this seam going inward. And that has also allowed me to secure this gold skirt that's going to be in the front of the dress. 2 birds, 1 stone. What bird murderer came up with that? Probably someone from New York because all of them want to murder pigeons. Or maybe even someone from Austin because we have this bird called the grackle. And now the grackle is much like a crow in the sense that it's all black. It has the ability to fly, 2 wings, 2 feet, 2 eyes, beak, feathers, all of the things that make a bird a bird. The key difference is that it has a call that is tantamount to a 747 taking off from a runway. Wow. It's so loud. It's the screechiest thing since a Sweet 16 party. And there is a strange amount of pride attached to these little black birds. I'm supposed to be making a dress. I don't remember what I was sewing here, but it's something, so you should probably pay attention. Okay, I thought this would be an interesting angle, but you can't really see anything, and I don't want to put the camera back on the tripod, so sorry you don't get to see this part. Bye! You move. Oh god, I forgot to... Quiet, you. This is the dress in all its splendor. I'm liking how it looks against this carpet, actually. It's like a gown floating in the ocean. A ghostly woman of yesteryear, drowned by her spurned lover. That was a bad accent. I know what you're thinking. Everything looks amazing up top until we get to that. What is this? An unfinished hem? Disgusting. But seriously, once we're done with this hem, the dress is finished. It is done. This dress was actually one of the quickest ones that I've ever made. But it's turning out to be one of my favorites. It's still super messy in detailed areas, but those are not areas that you're going to see, so... Now sew up the hem and then we can start working on the headdress. Yeah, I bet you thought this video was almost over. Well, joke's on you. Ignore the sound of running water, I just live by a waterfall. So I have come across an issue. Because my dress form is a woman, and I am in fact not a woman, despite what the internet says, the dress has been made with a very thick chest, which I do not have. Now my chest is quite thin, like skinny jeans worn by an emo child on their first day of high school in 2002. So I was thinking about adjusting the zipper to combat this. Actually, I think I'm going to keep it the way that it is because I'd like to loan this dress out to people going to maybe a Renaissance festival or something, of which Austin has many. For the headdress, you start with a cardboard piece and then cut out the general shape of your head. After that, move on to the general shape of the headdress itself. Trace that onto some fabric. I'm using gold, and then cut the fabric out. Now hot glue the fabric on, working around the edges so that it gets taut. So I glued a bunch of stuff to it, as you can see. I didn't film that because I didn't think you really needed to see it. I mean, who really cares? And also because I forgot to. It fits on my head like so. Now the next step is to put an elastic band across the back that will go around the back of your head just to keep it in place. And then we're gonna put some draped fabric across the back to hide the strap. And then we call it done. It's super simple, super easy, and it looks not terrible. Do what I just said. Okay, overall, this was a blast of a project. Like, I got this done so quick. In comparison to all the rest of my dresses, it was still like 2 days. Pretty much non-stop work. The headdress was super easy. That took an hour tops. Whew. But I chose the wrong fabric for this time of year, which I always do. I mean, what, you think I'm gonna sacrifice my looks for comfort? Oh my god, it was maybe, what, 80 degrees outside today with 500% humidity? But I was not going to give up that castle shoot. That was amazing. Shout out to my boyfriend Shane, who begrudgingly decided to help me film that. Thank you, Shane, you're so sweet. But yeah, seriously, under this, it's like a Congo. I'm Portuguese, so I'm very hairy, so it's just all the moisture's getting caught in the underbrush, you know? Anyway, thank you for joining me for another one of these, I'm not gonna call them tutorials, because I'm not going to entertain the idea that someone's actually going about making this from my template, because I'm a very bad teacher. My mom was a teacher all her life, and I feel like she'd be ashamed. Look at me, wondering if my mom would be ashamed of this. No, actually, both my parents are very supportive. Anyway, I'm trying to think of something to say that will end the video, and nothing is coming. I like turtles. Is it sideways?